Imagine this. It's dawn in June 1941. Millions of German soldiers crouch in silence along a vast frontier stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Engines rumble. Boots crunch the earth. At that same moment, thousands of miles away, Japanese pilots rehearse a secret strike that will shake the Pacific world. Here is the question. How did a European war between Hitler and Britain suddenly ignite into a true global conflict? This is the story of 1941 to 1942, when the war spread across continents, when nations that had tried to stand apart were dragged in, and when the future of the world truly hung in the balance. By early 1941, Europe was already burning. France had fallen. Britain stood alone, bruised but unbroken. Germany and Italy dominated the continent, while Hitler prepared his next move. But the war had not yet reached its full, terrifying scale. The United States was still neutral. The Soviet Union, though wary, had signed a pact with Nazi Germany. And Japan, hungry for empire, was watching, waiting, sharpening its blade. Across the globe, tension coiled like a spring. Everyone sensed a storm was coming. But where would it strike first? On June 22nd, 1941, that storm exploded. Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history. Over 3 million German soldiers surged across the Soviet border, backed by tanks, planes, and artillery. For the Soviets, it was a nightmare. Stalin had ignored warnings, convinced Hitler wouldn't risk war with him. Now, Soviet defenses collapsed under the onslaught. Entire armies were encircled. Cities like Minsk and Smolensk fell within weeks. Yet the Soviet Union did not break. Factories were hauled east, rebuilt beyond the reach of German bombers. Soldiers, civilians, even children were thrown into the fight. The cost was horrific. But this was not a war the Soviets could afford to lose. As German forces advanced toward Moscow, the world watched. Could Hitler crush the Soviet Union before winter? The answer would shape the future of the war. While Europe burned, another fuse was lit in Asia. Japan had long dreamed of dominating the Pacific. But American oil embargoes threatened to choke its empire. Japan's leaders made a fateful decision. Strike hard, strike fast, and seize the resources they needed. On December 7th, 1941, Japanese aircraft roared over Pearl Harbor. Battleships exploded. Airfields burned. The attack left over 2,000 Americans dead and dragged the United States into war overnight. But Pearl Harbor was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Japan swept through Asia and the Pacific. The Philippines, Malaya, Hong Kong, Singapore. Their empire stretched from Burma to the Pacific Islands. For a moment, it looked unstoppable. Pearl Harbor changed everything. The United States, with its vast industry and manpower, was now fully committed. Factories that once made cars churned out tanks and planes. Millions enlisted. Roosevelt declared the fight a global struggle for freedom. In Europe, American support gave Britain hope. In the Pacific, U.S. forces regrouped. The Battle of the Coral Sea, and more dramatically, Midway in 1942, showed that Japan's advance could be halted. 4 Japanese carriers were sunk in a matter of hours, a blow from which their navy would never recover. Meanwhile, in the East, the Soviets made their own stand. The Battle of Moscow in late 1941 stopped the German advance. Soldiers dug in through freezing snow, while Siberian reinforcements hurled the exhausted Germans back. Hitler's dream of a quick victory was shattered. For the first time, the Axis war machine had been slowed. By the end of 1942, the war was no longer a European conflict. It was a truly global struggle. From the deserts of North Africa to the frozen steppes of Russia, from the jungles of Burma to the islands of the Pacific, the Axis had expanded far and fast, but the tide was beginning to turn. The United States had entered the fight. The Soviet Union had survived. Britain endured. The war that began in 1939 as Hitler's gamble had now become a clash of entire worlds. And in the next chapter, we'll see how battles in North Africa, Stalingrad, and the Pacific would decide the fate of millions. Because in war, momentum is everything. And in 1942, that momentum was starting to shift. And that brings us to the end of episode 3, A Global Conflict. In this chapter, we witnessed how the war that began in Europe erupted into a worldwide battle, with Hitler invading the Soviet Union and Japan striking at Pearl Harbor. In the next episode, we'll uncover the turning points of the war, from the deserts of Africa to the blood-soaked streets of Stalingrad. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part of our World War II series. And tell us in the comments, which moment from 1941 to 42 do you think changed the course of the war the most? Operation Barbarossa, Pearl Harbor, or the Battle of Midway? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in episode 4.